Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. It is Monday, so hope everybody had a great weekend. But to start off the week, we did get some exciting news that kind of shows you why the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition could actually be a good thing for consumers. See, that's always really kind of been the thing for me personally. While I'm not necessarily somebody rooting for publisher acquisitions, but when I look at this one specifically, I do actually see the benefits it could bring gamers. And that's what we're going to talk about today, as Phil Spencer is already suggesting some exciting revivals. Yeah, I think you are going to like this one very much. Also, one of Sony's big PlayStation 5 exclusives for 2023 just got an update for its timed exclusivity, so we're going to discuss that one as well. As always though, if you're new to the channel, do make sure to hit those buttons below, like, subscribe, and do ring that bell. With that said though, you know it. Let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers is almost finally upon us. It does release tomorrow, and well, now reviews did start to roll out today. And you know what? It's actually doing pretty good. It does have a 73 overall score on Metacritic, and while at first that doesn't necessarily sound like a resounding success, it does sound like critics are really enjoying this game. Out of the 48 total reviews as of this recording, 30 are positive, 15 are mixed, and then only 3 are negative. Now, I know both GameSpot and IGN, which are some of the big outlets out there, they, as an example, were absolutely glowing about how fun this game is and how it's just this breath of fresh air. But at the same time, even though both outlets seem to have greatly enjoyed their experience with Sonic Frontiers, they still gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, from what I've gathered, the reason for this is because it's still not a perfect game, and it does have some issues, some glaring issues like pop-in, as an example. I think we kind of already knew that was a problem though, as pop-in has been pretty persistent in all the early previews. But at the end of the day, I just keep consistently hearing that this game is actually a fun game, and that it could be the evolution that the 3D Sonic franchise needed. A lot of different reviews are kind of echoing that sentiment there. Now, we'll see if Sega can continue with the evolution going forward. I sure hope they do. But for the time being, Sonic? Yeah, Sonic seems to be back, and you'll be able to pick up Frontiers tomorrow on November 8th. Now, this is really just going to be a busy week in general, though. Of course, Sonic Frontiers is coming, as we just talked about a moment ago. There's also God of War Ragnarok coming November 9th. Cannot wait for that one. It looks absolutely excellent. And now Nintendo, they also just announced a new Nintendo Indie World Direct that's going to take place on November 9th at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Now, this event will roughly be 25 minutes long, which is actually a pretty beefy showcase. There's a lot of games that you can show in that amount of time. But with that said, though, I was actually a little surprised by this showcase. I wasn't really expecting a November event, but that makes me all the more curious on what they have to show here. A lot of the times, Nintendo likes to focus on games coming relatively soon, so we could actually see some nice holiday surprises here. Then you also have big games like Hollow Knight, Silksong. Maybe we finally get a release date for that game. That game is supposed to release at least in the first half of 2023, or going by Xbox's showcase from earlier this year. That's what they said. So maybe that pops up here. There's also Sea of Stars, which is a game I'm very much looking forward to. This is a retro-style RPG inspired by the likes of Chrono Trigger. And it is coming from the Messenger Studio, which is an excellent game. So maybe we get an update for that game alongside some other surprises here. Again, though, I mean, this showcase popping up in November, it is interesting to me. A lot of the times, Nintendo likes to pair these indie directs with more of a general direct soon thereafter, but with it being so late in the year, I'm not really sure that they're going to do that this time. Nonetheless, though, November 9th, it's definitely going to be a fun one for gamers, whether you're on PlayStation playing God of War, or if you're on Nintendo and if you like those indie games, you might want to stay tuned for November 9th. Of course, though, I will watch this showcase and update you all afterwards in case you do miss it yourself. Now, speaking of Nintendo, just a little bit of a warning here, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are now starting to leak out online. Different Pokemon, the starter evolutions, and stuff like that are now being posted up on social media. I think most of it is coming from Central Leaks, I believe, and some people do get really frustrated with this type of stuff. They want the game to be a complete mystery, and even myself, when I know I'm getting a game, I do prefer to know as little as possible. That sense of discovery, it makes games more satisfying in my opinions. So if you are trying to avoid Pokemon spoilers ahead of its launch on November 17th, you might want to just go ahead and avoid social media. Unfortunately, those pictures are just being posted up, and if you're just kind of skimming through Twitter, there's a good chance you might see one of those unannounced Pokemon. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you just can't wait to see some of these new Pokemon, well, they're now pretty easily found with just a simple search on Twitter if that's something that you want to do. Let's go and talk about Xbox and the latest on the Activision Blizzard acquisition. I mean, there's just always something happening with this buyout, right? But one of the things that's always really kind of fascinated me about this acquisition is the potential pros for consumers. See, Activision Blizzard is a big third-party publisher that owns a lot of different popular IP, and that does draw some concern, but Microsoft has been pretty adamant that Call of Duty and other popular franchises will remain multi-platform. Now, they're not necessarily naming what they're considering popular franchises, so there still is that looming. There's not really been any specific naming on what IP will be multi-platform outside of the likes of Call of Duty, but there are some very nice things that can come from this buyout for consumers. Now, there's a couple of different reasons that I say this. One is that both Xbox and PC gamers will directly benefit in the sense that they have yet another option to play these games through the likes of Xbox Game Pass or PC Game Pass. Regardless of exclusivity, the best on gaming will get better, and that's great for fans. However, one of the other big benefits, and we discussed this very early in the year, is the potential for Activision Blizzard focusing on more games. Right now, it is debatable that Activision Blizzard has become a little bit of a Call of Duty factory. Pretty much all of their studios, in some shape or form, are working on the future of Call of Duty as they try to pump out at least one every single year. Now, Xbox, they could scale that operation back and maybe release one every other couple of years. I mean, we'll see about all of that. But while Call of Duty is a massive franchise that brings them in a ton of money, this does take away from their other beloved franchises. It takes away from creative freedom. But the thing about Xbox is because of the Xbox Game Pass model, they don't solely need to rely on just a singular IP. Instead, variety is actually very important for something like Xbox Game Pass, which means that there could be a greater importance put on not only creativity, but releasing a wide variety of beloved IP. Think of franchises like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon as an example, or the many beloved Blizzard IP. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because Phil Spencer in an interview is already talking about wanting to revive the likes of StarCraft and WarCraft. Now, I know for a fact that fans have been clamoring for the return of these franchises for years and years, and Phil Spencer is already giving fans some hope. Yeah, check out what he had to say on these iconic IP. The first thing I would say is I'm not allowed to make any decisions about what happens at Blizzard or Activision or King. Keep in mind, I haven't actually completed that acquisition. But he continues on to say, so this is all just kind of talking and thinking about what the opportunity is. But you're absolutely right. Not only StarCraft, but WarCraft. When you think about the heritage of RTS games that we're talking about here, specifically from Blizzard, and I don't have any concrete plans today because I can't really get in and work with the teams, but StarCraft was a seminal moment in gaming, right? From an esports perspective, from RTS and console perspective, and from just an RTS storytelling perspective in the genre. And I'm excited about getting to sit down with the teams at Activision and Blizzard and King to talk about back catalog and opportunities that we might have. So Xbox, Phil Spencer himself here is already showing interest by talking about that rich back catalog that Activision Blizzard has. Games like StarCraft and WarCraft, which I know fans have been dreaming for a return of those games for a very long time. And this is not the first time that Phil Spencer has mentioned something like this. He also mentioned bringing back Hexen out of all games earlier this year, so it does seem like there's a legitimate interest here in unlocking some of those beloved IP and expanding what Activision Blizzard does right now. And that there has really, to me, always been one of the most exciting parts about this buyout. I think it only increases the chances of those games returning, including the much requested Spyro 4. Right now, Activision Blizzard, some of these games are just kind of being lost in the fold because they're so focused on IP like Call of Duty. You have studios locked away within Activision Blizzard, studios like Vicarious Visions. That's a studio that did great work on the Crash and Sane trilogy and then also Diablo 2 Resurrected. And Activision rewarded them by stripping away their name and essentially just made them into a support team. Xbox, though, because they hold more importance in variety, they could maybe reverse something like that and bring them back and have them work on yet another beloved IP. So I do think that this is one reason why this buyout is actually a good thing. You could actually see more creative freedom within the studios. Now, as for StarCraft and WarCraft specifically, these are much more PC-driven games, but Xbox hasn't really shied away from making PC-only games up to this point. Age of Empires and Gears Tactic, both of those did launch as PC-only games, and then eventually they made their way to consoles. So they very much could do the same with Blizzard games. It does fit within their strategy. You have to remember that PC Game Pass has seen extraordinary growth, and games like this would only accelerate that growth even further. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you think this buyout is actually good for consumers or not? I would love to hear y'all's opinion on this, so let me know in the comments below. Now, we also got an update for a big PlayStation 5 exclusive that's releasing next year in 2023, being Final Fantasy XVI. One thing that we have seen in recent years is that Sony and Square Enix are closely tied together when it comes to the Final Fantasy series. It does seem like Sony wants PlayStation to be viewed as the home to Final Fantasy, as they've secured several time exclusive deals, including with the next big installment. The big question now, though, is how long did they lock down Final Fantasy XVI, and when can other platforms play it? Well, we do have some more specific details now. This is coming directly from Sony, as they posted a new marketing campaign for the PlayStation 5 titled Play Like Never Before. In this ad, they showed several games, including God of War Ragnarok, NBA 2K, The Last of Us Part 1, and then also, just for a brief moment, Final Fantasy XVI. But right at the bottom in fine print, as you can see here on screen, it says, and I quote, Final Fantasy XVI anticipated summer 2023, PlayStation 5 exclusive for 6 months. So yeah, there you go. It is a 6-month timed exclusive. Now, even with this information, though, there's still some pretty major questions here. In most situations, I think that we would just kind of assume that this game is going to head over to both Xbox and PC after a 6-month period. But when it comes to Final Fantasy and Square Enix, there's more questions involved here. Really, it becomes, after that 6-month period, what platforms will it head to? Will this be another Final Fantasy VII Remake situation where it comes to PC, but not Xbox consoles? That can't necessarily be ruled out just yet. There is a possibility that Sony paid to keep it away from Xbox consoles for a longer period than just 6 months. We've seen it happen already. But however, one way or the other, I would fully expect Final Fantasy XVI at the bare minimum to release on PC after that 6-month period. Actually, when they first announced this game, that original reveal did actually note that it was also releasing on PC. But later on, Square Enix, they took that video down and removed any mention of a PC version. Yeah, that's a little shady, honestly. It does make it seem like they've already got a PC game in development. They just refuse to announce it, but hey, it is what it is. What we do know, though, is that Final Fantasy XVI will come elsewhere after 6 months. Platforms, though, that still remains a little bit of a mystery here, just because we've seen what happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake. But again, at the very least, I would expect it to be on PC. One way or the other, though, I am actually really excited about this game. I think it looks really good. It is coming from the Final Fantasy XIV team, and they've done an excellent job on those expansions, so I am really excited to see what they can do with a fully single-player Final Fantasy game. That's also actually the first mainline mature-rated title. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all. Phil Spencer previously suggested that Xbox might have to raise prices somewhere eventually. What do you think is the most likely to raise in price? And as you can see here, the majority of you all actually believe that will come down to Xbox Game Pass with 72% of the votes. Then 13% of you all believe it will be games. Then 11% believes it'll be the Xbox Series X and S. And 3% believes it will be Xbox Live Gold. So yeah, I was actually a little surprised by the results here. I myself look at games as being the most likely candidate to raise in price, just because we're already seeing that with a multitude of publishers going from $60 up to $70. So I could see Xbox doing the same, and potentially the first games that could do that would maybe be Starfield and Redfall. And I feel like that would probably be the least controversial, just because, again, so many publishers are already doing it. However, Nico in the comments did point out something interesting. Nico said, "Forgot where I heard it, but I heard someone say that they would probably do a Game Pass price increase once the Activision deal closed. I think this makes best sense since they are going to be adding a lot of value and spending a lot of money with that purchase." And yeah, that is a rather logical conclusion to make as well. Xbox Game Pass is such an incredible deal that they probably could raise it incrementally without much fuss, especially if they add all of Activision's games, including Call of Duty Day 1. That would possibly lessen the sting quite substantially, I would think. I mean, of course, it also depends on how much they would actually raise the price, but yeah, nothing can necessarily really be ruled out just as of yet. The world really is in a crazy place right now, so, I mean, I guess we'll just have to kind of see what happens, if anything happens at all. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.